Hello and thank you for watching. I'm Ryan. In this video, how to create artificial breathing sounds in Pro Tools. And I'm going to use stock plugins to show you how to do it. A while back, I was doing a music composition for yoga, and I decided I wanted to do a theme that was based on breathing. So I wanted to do some automation of reverb to show just to bring some attention to how important breathing is as part of that exercise. And I came up with this really cool way to apply vocalizations to reverb that sounds like breathing. And there's some automation involved in that. There's some experimenting involved in it. And there's a lot of different things actually that you can do once you do some of that sound design. A lot of different areas you can go off into. So you can do some things that bring some realism to it. You can do some things that bring some otherworldly, supernatural kind of sounding component to it. And I think all of that is kind of fun and worth playing around with. So that's what we'll get into today. We thank the creator for our time today. Let's have some fun. So I'm going to begin with a blank session here. And what I was doing as I was preparing for this is I was writing down some bullet points of the steps to make sure I don't skip something and try to make sense out of it all, keep it in a nice, clean order. And I decided it probably would be useful for a number of people to be able to have a step-by-step guide to go through also. So I went ahead and created this, and this is a PDF guide, and this is a guide that I'm actually following. I have it printed out here in front of me. But this is a PDF step-by-step guide of all the steps that I'm going to do, popular quick keys that can help, and screenshots of what things should look like along the way as we're working through this. So I am going to make this guide available along with my plugin presets and the actual Pro Tools session when I'm finished at the end. I'm going to make all of this available to people so that you can have a copy of the finished work and have something to launch from if there's something else that you want to experiment with that, all right? So it'll be kind of fun, and we'll do a little bit more community engagement on this as well. I am just going to name this project Breathing, and I'm just going to have a bass I/O setting to begin with this and create that session. I'm going to leave this on my desktop here with everything else we can see. And we'll just get into it here. So the first thing I'm going to do is create some instrument tracks. The easiest way to do that is to hold the Option key down and double click. So I'm going to do that a couple times. And I've got 3 stereo instrument tracks here in the edit window. If you're on Windows, you're using the Alt key instead of Option. You're using Control instead of Command, and Start instead of Control. No problem. All right. I'm going to rename this first track Noise because what I'm going to do here, you need a source sound to trigger the reverb. And the more that sound is focused into mid-range, high mid-range frequencies, the more you have to shape into kind of a vocal sound. And I'm going to use the signal generator, which will produce white noise. And then you can kind of filter it and shape it however you need to. But so that's what the first track is going to be. The second track in here is going to be the actual breathing itself. So I'm going to put that in here. And the third track is going to be any effects that you want on the voice after the breathing and the intervals are going through. And so I'm just going to call this reverb because I'm going to add a reverb onto the vocalization to kind of carry that decay later. So I'm kind of giving myself, a couple steps to follow and to stay in line with as we set this up. Now, because I'm beginning with generating noise, the signal generator plugin is what I'm going to start with, and it is automatically creating sound when we insert it. So the first thing I'm going to do is mute the noise track. And I'm just going to type this in here. Signal generator. So this is right now creating a 1K sine wave tone. And I'm going to switch that to the white noise algorithm in here. And then I'm just going to bring the level up. I'm going to bring it up to like -10. And you could bring it up higher. I'm partly afraid that I'm just going to unmute or unbypass something accidentally and send a white noise burst through all of our ears. And if I were to do that, I would give you an indicator on screen before that's about to happen. as I edit this out, but I think I'll be mindful of it and try to be vigilant and not allow that to happen. I'm going to bring a level up to -10. That's just a good, strong level of noise and really all we need. And I'm actually going to bypass this plugin too. And I'm going to take this target button off, which means that plugin will remain open if I open others. And so this is going to be a good default state for us. On the breathing track, I'm going to insert here the air reverb plugin, followed by the filter gate plugin, followed by talkbox, and I'm going to put an EQ at the end in here as well. All right, a 4 plugin list. I have this EQ open. I'm going to shift click on the other 3 to open those plugin windows. And I'll take that target off as well. So I'm just making sure that these plugins stay open and we can see what's happening all the way. Just like this, okay? Now, the first thing to do is to kind of give us a bypassed state for the signal generator plugin because we need a safety to kind of go back and to turn the white noise off, essentially. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a 2-bar unbypassed clip, or a bypassed clip for the signal generator. And something I'm going to point out here that I'm doing is as I'm inserting these plugins, you see everything is green. There are these little green indicators on all of the parameters of all of the plugins in here and in this one. And that's due to a preference. So if I just check out our Pro Tools settings for a minute, in the mixing tab, we have a preference here for plugin controls default to auto enabled. So that is allowing me to insert plugins and they are ready to be automated right away. One of the cool things that you can do is you can hold down Control and Command and you can click on any of these things and it will automatically jump to that view for you to draw in and automate that stuff. Control Command click back on the track name and that'll take you back to a default view, in this case clip view for the instrument tracks. Something that is happening because I have a screen capture program going is that this is a conflict for the air plugin. So while I'm screen recording, I cannot jump to the individual views for the controls of these plugins. If I come over here to the EQ, everything is fine. But what's happening is while I'm screen capturing with the air plugins, they don't recognize the command key. And so if I command control click on reverb time, it's just acting like I'm control clicking on it and I want to, or right clicking and assigning a MIDI controller, which is a little frustrating, but we're just going to work through that. And these kind of behave a little silly when you're doing some screen recording stuff. So, okay, so I'm in the bypass view for the signal generator here. It is currently bypassed. I'm going to make a breakpoint right here on the grid after those 2 bars. And I'm going to go back to the clip view and I'm going to render or consolidate an empty clip here. And I'm going to right click and just rename this bypassed. Name this clip this way. And I'm showing the instrument column for the instrument tracks. So I'm going to click on the MIDI output here and just assign this to an arbitrary MIDI channel. We'll give that clip color, okay? And this is just a behavior for the instrument tracks. Avid didn't design instrument tracks to be used for automation containers. And so who knows, maybe at some point they'll make an adjustment to that. But here we are. So now I actually have a clip color. I'm good there. And I'm ready to start messing around with this stuff. So I'm gonna Control Command click on breathing down here. And so the first thing that I'll do actually is I'm going to put the cursor here and I'm just going to, we're going to go back to our bypass position for this. And as I unbypass this plugin, we are going to notice this kind of breathing interval that is happening, okay? So what's happening is the noise is coming, well, it's not actually coming in yet. I need to change some routing here. But our noise is going to come into these 4 plugins, and it's going to pick up the reverb, which is going to give us an airy quality, right? And reverberation, an airy reverberation of what that noise is. It's going to go through the filter gate that is going to create an interval on that, open and closed. And it's going to go through the talkbox plugin, which is going to put a vowel on that sound as well. And then with the EQ, we can shape these things a little bit, okay? First thing I'm going to do is take the output of this noise track. I'm just going to click on this output right here and go to the breathing track so that we are rerouting all of this sound into here. The next thing I'm going to do while I'm in here is I'm going to go ahead and assign another air reverb plugin to this reverb track, because this is going to represent any effects that I want on the vocalizations after we've created them. So we get the interval and the vowel exchange on the reverb, and then that gives us the voice, and then I actually want my voice to go through reverb at that stage again. So that would represent any of the effects we want to put on the voice afterwards. And now that that's inserted here as well, I'm just going to go to Ascend. And actually, I have two columns of inserts here. I'm going to go to Ascend and go down to Track and Reverb. And I'm going to command click on the send here and pull the fader down so that I can just see that fader in the channel. And we're ready to go. I have created plugin presets for each of these plugins, and I also will share those. And so I'm just going to click here and assign each of my plugin presets that I've kind of prepared for each of these, and talk about a couple of the values that these are assigned to. And oops, not that one. I'm not using that one yet. So I have breath verb, breath gate, breath talk. That's this reverb, and this reverb, I'm just going to set that to my default in here. I don't actually have a plan, an exact plan for that one yet. But these other four are good to go. So this one should be an EQ shape. Okay, so on the reverb, what kind of a reverb do we want? I am using a reverb time that's about 8.5 seconds right now. So you want a lengthy reverb time. You want the noise to kind of burst in and trigger the reverb, and then you want most of the sound to actually come from the reverb itself, just the reverb decay itself. So there's kind of a natural decay there, and it feels a little bit more real. So a couple things to note in this plugin. I'm using the Vintage 1 algorithm for early reflections, which are less here, but it does smooth the reverb over a little bit. I'm using a long reverb time. 100% ambience on the largest room size is a very smooth sounding reverb, and that's what we're beginning with. There is a high frequency cut here at 12K, and there's actually a couple things happening to frequencies here, right? So I have a high cut at 12K. I have a bandpass filter happening in the filter gate here that's focusing more on the high and high mids. And then I actually have an EQ shape here that's doing virtually the same thing. These are going to kind of reinforce each other. This is also adding gain to those frequencies at the same time, because we are cutting some things out, and we're beginning at 10 dB down to begin with. And so that's what's going on there. Okay, in the filter gate plugin, I have an interval set to a half note, and you could set this really to anything. I think a half note is a good starting point. And I'm using the straight pattern and a gradual envelope, okay? Gradual attack and release, just so things aren't hard cutting in and out that makes that, unnatural. In the talkbox plugin, we are beginning with a vowel sound where the mouth is mostly closed. So if you're doing ooh, then your mouth is mostly closed on that shape, and that's going to represent our inhale. So if we dig into the vowels here a little bit, we can recognize that some vowels where the mouth is mostly closed, I'm going to use that to kind of dull down those intervals to represent an inhale. So when we inhale, our inhales are usually less pronounced than exhales, right? We have and so you are kind of playing up a little bit the inhale sound by closing the mouth more, which will represent more of the mouth being closed, and then the exhale coming out of the mouth. That just gives you a more dynamic breathing sound between those two. So I'm going to focus on the oohs and the ohs as my inhale vowel sound, and the a's, ahs, e's as the exhale vowel sound, okay? And that's going to be our target as we're moving through these. And then we could also play with the formant a little bit. We'll actually play with automating a couple of these little of these other things in here to kind of shape up what we're getting. But this is a fun sound design exercise. This is by no means the only way to do something interesting. I'm sure you'll have many more ideas about this as you pick up from where I leave off today, okay? Now, okay, so our first two bars here are bypassed with a clip that we have there. What I'm going to do here is, okay, I'm going to switch over to bypass view. I'm going to change my grid here to 16th notes. And all I want to do is I want to unbypass the noise for a 16th note. And by doing that, if I unmute this track, okay, we can already hear the reverb, the interval on the reverb, and this kind of benign filtering sound that we're getting from this ooh, right? We don't really hear a vowel there. We just, if I bypass this, oops, I'll just unmute this. Okay, big difference now that you can hear just from what the ooh is doing, you know, to that. And I want this to cycle every half note because every half note is going to be a different vowel in the way that we're doing this. So I'm just going to make this selection, and I'm just going to duplicate that 3 times. So we'll just have 2 bars of breathing, and we'll do, we'll do 4 vowel sounds here. And inhale, exhale, and work through that and just see what we're doing, you know, to start, what we've got to work with. Now, I'm going to go back to the clip view here. I'm going to go ahead and put a new clip in here. And that's going to be unbypassed. And if I open my color palette here, just select a different clip color for that, all right? And this is essentially what I'll build out. So I'll probably just repeat this, you know, to keep on going as we bring other vowels and stuff in. So I'll go ahead and duplicate that 1 time just so we're ready to kind of fill some of this out here. Now, so we have the reverb coming in, we have the timing filter on the reverb, and so we're just going to experiment with the vowel, and that's where we're going to start. And so I'm going to change, I have to manually change this track view on the TalkBox plugin to vowel. And I'm going to change this every half note. And so my first half note from 3-1 to 3-3 is going to remain the same. We're going to leave that alone. And then I'm going to take 3-3 to 4-1, and I'm going to trim this up to something that's more open. Like that. Okay, so we're going to use the inhale, which is subdued, and then the double A, which is very obviously open. And I'm just going to select these 2 for a minute and duplicate that. And by duplicating it, what I'm doing is I'm giving myself automatic segregated intervals here that I can just trim and make this a lot easier for me moving forward. Okay, and actually I'll do that a couple times. So we'll do it more like that. And I'll go ahead and just drop a breakpoint in there on the first grid, okay? Now, as I start to experiment with some of this, I'm going to move the cursor into a position and click, and I'm going to hear that vowel, and then I'm just going to trim it to the vowel of my choice, all right? So I'm going to kind of do this live so that you can hear what's happening. It could get annoying if you don't think ahead to what it could be, but we're just going to work through this kind of 1 vowel at a time. And I'll say this also, if I start off with ooh, and that's going to represent my inhale, then the thing that I could do is just keep the ooh for every single one that I wanted to do an inhale interval. But even just adjusting that position just slightly will give you a slightly different character. And that's a good idea, I think, to do. You obviously could repeat the same thing over and over, but the more you shift the character slightly, the more realism you kind of involve into the process as you play around with it. So, so I kind of have my first two here. So if I take this third one, if I click here, okay. Now I have positioned these into different vowels. And what I'm going to do now is render a clip, a new clip, essentially, for each one. And that would just allow me to kind of reposition them and reorder them in any way, really, that I want to. So I'm going to go back to the clip view. And in order to do this the quickest, I'm going to change my grid here to half notes. And I'm going to make a selection and then separate the clip onto the half note grid to match up with all of the intervals that we did. What am I doing? Separate. I need to render a clip first, sorry. There we go. Genius. And all right, so I'm gonna click on each one. I'm just gonna mute this for a minute because that'll get annoying, but I'm gonna just click on each clip here and look at the actual vowel that's in here and just rename each one. Now that I've done that, I'm gonna color code each one as well, assigning this track also to a MIDI output of some kind. Okay, now all of these are automation containers. They are each a different vowel. And really the thing to do now is just to press play and see what we have, see what we're starting with, and then to see if there's a different order that we want to play with. What the heck? Oh, come on, dude. You're killing me. You're killing me. The plugins. You guys are killing me. Let me turn this back on. Bro. That's not what you're programmed actually to do at all. That's not what you're, no. So what's going on here? Bro. I think I need a stiffer drink than this right now. And I need a cookie. I'm eating a cookie. How do I shut this thing? All right, look. Dude. Come on, man. Couple cookies and some tea later. I think I have to actually, while I'm screen recording, I have to actually go to each vowel and just readjust it to get this to catch the automation that's there. It's just being crazy, right? Sound designing with the Air plugins is great, just not when you're screen recording them and you're trying to do it, right? So, okay. I actually like these first two O vowels kind of better to begin with. And so what I would do is I'm actually just going to repeat a couple of these. I'm going to bring this one down here instead. And I could obviously just kind of put that one off to the side to come back to at some point, but here I'm just gonna kind of build this out a little bit more. That AU is pretty cool too, actually. And so what I might do, and you're looking for kind of, you know, combinations here too. So what I might do is pull this out here, kind of reposition some of these. Now, some of these transitions they'll be a little bit quicker on your end as you're working through that. And what's happening here is you're just assigning, right, these in whatever order that you like, and then just building out new and interesting sounds. Okay? And just continuing to build that out as you go. And that's kind of the fun part about the clip automation. One thing I need to say about the clip automation, though, is that you want this button right here to be on. The reason the automation is following the clips is because automation follows clip editing is actually on. That's this feature. I'm not even saying it right. Automation follows edit is the name of that one. And you can just continue to do that. Now, you want to kind of dial in a number of these things before you get too far down, down the timeline. And the reason is because there's more that we can do here to kind of shape this. So it makes more sense to kind of dull down the inhale and to make the exhale more pronounced. You get a more dynamic difference that way. So another thing that we can do here is I'm just going to go to the gain on this EQ mid-range band. And so for these, for this automation lane, for example, I'm going to reset this down to 0. And I'm holding the command key down to get fine values there, just like that. Okay, and that is taking the high-mid gain out of the inhale vowels as you go through the intervals. And it gives you a dynamic difference when you do that. The other thing that I'll do here is I will go to, I'm actually going to start using automation lanes now so you guys can see everything that we're doing. So we have the vowel, and then we just added the EQ band. What I'm going to do now is add the attack on the filter gate. So I'm going to go filter gate and gate attack here, which is this knob right there. And I want the, I'll just make this track a little smaller so we can keep everything in view. I want the attack on the inhale to be more labored and kind of drawn out more. So I'm going to go to the first half note and just make this longer. And I'm just going to duplicate that out as well. And remember, these clips that we have on this track are containers for all of this automation, right? It's not just the vowel. We're adding all of that stuff underneath here. So if I just switch this track back to clip view and I copy this down here again, you can see all of the automation is going with that. That'll automatically transition over. So this is where the fun really comes in as to how much you want to kind of shape each vowel sound, because I'm doing half note, just adjustments to inhale and exhale and duplicating that stuff out. What if you want the AU to be opened a little bit more, a little bit faster on this, and open that mid-range band a little bit more, for example, instead of cutting it all the way out. And so that half note looks like this, as opposed to, okay, it's just a little bit of a different feeling on that. So as you make these slight adjustments to the gate envelope, to the vowel shape, to the EQ shape, right? All of those things are going to refine this. There's something else we can do in here too, and that is we can give the reverb less low frequencies coming in to feed back on. And the easiest way to do that, really, instead of messing with the frequencies and the reverb, is just to EQ the noise. So if I go here and just put an EQ 7-band in here, and actually, you know what? We'll just copy this up, won't we? So if I just copy this EQ up here, and if I just go to the gain on this one and just kind of zero this out, so there is no automation for the EQ on that track. And if I just refine what the reverb is getting to begin with, this is going to change things too. Okay, so that refines the reverb actually a little bit more. Instead of us filtering and EQing the reverb, we can prevent the reverb from getting some of those things to begin with, and it feels clearer and cleaner to me. So this is it. I'll play this through one more time. And then we're going to add reverb to the voice like we normally would get. Okay, we're going to put the breathing into a space now. And I'm not going to really try too hard to dial in whatever the perfect reverb for this might be, but just to give the reverb, just to give the breath now some character of space also. That really helps to sell it now because we put the breath in a space of its own, whatever we want that space to be. Okay? So pretty cool workflow, pretty fun. I think once you get to experimenting with this, there's a lot of different things you can do with it. What I do want to do is just take a moment and talk about if you're doing any third-party stuff, you know. So I'll just point out 2 plugins that I've been having a little bit of fun with as I've been playing around with this. We recognize the value of the filter gate to just kind of set an envelope and to open, and kind of some very basic controls here, but it is really useful. It's a cool plugin. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take the filter gate out for a minute. I'm just going to deactivate that for a minute, and I'm going to replace this with the tremolator from Soundtoys. The tremolator is a very similar kind of plugin, but it goes the extra mile with giving you control over the gate shape, really kind of every part of the gate shape that you're doing in here. So I would do the same thing in here. I would say, you know, let's go with a half note. And then you're choosing, you know, whatever you want the shape to be. So here are the shapes, but you are basically at a point where you are designing, you know, your own shape. So you can, whatever you start with, you're going to change the shape up, you know? And so here you have control over the specific attack, how much you want to elongate, and you can create extra points in here and kind of establish how you want these things to work. And you can say, you know, I want to take the edge off the release a little bit slower and make the attack a little bit more prominent. So all right, and I won't get into the filtering in this plugin. This plugin doesn't actually have much filtering in it, does it? But you're just applying an EQ, whatever EQ you want to that. But you can hear how bright, you know, everything is just because of the automation that we already have under that. So the tremolator plugin is actually really cool for being much more specific, you know, about the gate shapes when you're playing around with those things. The second thing for me is I like the Eventide Octavox plugin. And because this plugin is all about detuning, retuning, and pitch, and basically giving you a whole bunch of parallel layers of different pitch with delay. And so all of that stuff together just gives you these really interesting kinds of changes. And so I'm just going to play through this for a minute and just go through a couple presets, okay? What am I doing? There we go. All right. So Octavox is pretty fun. I'm not even trying to do anything there. We're just sorting through presets. All right, guys, thank you for watching. You can check out my music track called Find Your Breath. It's available on all streaming music services, and I'll provide links for that down below. I'm also going to provide a link to the assets for this demonstration. That's going to include the step-by-step PDF guide, the completed Pro Tools session, as you see it here, with a couple tweaks to make sure that things are nice and clean and sounding good. I'm also providing the plugin presets that I used here, and I'm also pulling the tracks from my Find Your Breath session that you can use and investigate those as well. A slightly different sound source that I used in there, a few different plugins, still stock plugins, and that you can use for your own creative endeavors. So thanks again, have fun, go create something.